Let's talk about Super Mario Bros. 3. You know, for so many of us, it wasn't just a game, it was the game, the absolute benchmark for perfection. But what if I told you that perfection was all an illusion? We're going to peel back the layers on one of the greatest games ever made and uncover the secrets hiding just beneath the surface. I mean, you gotta remember, when this game hit the shelves back in '88, it was a massive deal. It wasn't just another sequel, no. This thing was a huge, sprawling adventure that completely redefined what a video game could even be. It really felt like the culmination of everything Nintendo had learned up to that point, a true masterpiece that would go on to shape, well, the entire future of gaming. And that seal, the official Nintendo seal of quality, that meant something back then. It was Nintendo's personal promise to you that you were getting a polished, bug-free experience. It was this guarantee of perfection that pretty much set the standard for the entire industry. Okay, but here's the thing. That's just the story on the box. The real story of Super Mario Bros. 3 is way more complicated. It's this wild tapestry of secrets, from playful little discoveries to a full-on Hollywood blockbuster reveal, all woven around a fundamental flaw hidden deep inside its code. All right, so let's start with the first layer of secrets. These are the ones a lot of us probably remember from our childhoods, right? The whispers on the playground about hidden paths and secret items. These were the little breadcrumbs the developers left for us on purpose, a little reward for the most curious players out there. And of course, the most famous one has to be the warp whistle. This is a perfect example of how the developers were basically telling us to think outside the box. You had to duck on this one specific white block, and then you'd fall behind the scenery. You could run right past the end of the level. It was totally mind-blowing, and it let you skip entire worlds. It was a secret that literally rewarded you for breaking the rules of the game. But, not every secret was put there on purpose. Sometimes players stumbled upon these, let's call them happy accidents in the code, ways to exploit the game's mechanics that the creators never ever intended. And these discoveries, they really blurred the line between what's a feature and what's a bug, creating this whole new layer of secrets for us to find. This right here is the perfect example, the infinite one-up trick. By trapping a Koopa shell in just the right spot, you could basically trick the game into giving you an endless supply of extra lives. It wasn't a secret door the designers made, it was a happy accident. It was this little crack in the game's perfect facade that, let's be honest, we all loved to exploit. Okay, let's dig a little deeper now. The next layer of secrecy is a big one, because the biggest reveal for this game wasn't found on a playground. Nope, it was up on the silver screen. Before most of us ever got our hands on the controller, Super Mario Bros. 3 was actually the big climax of a Hollywood movie. Yeah, that movie was 1989's The Wizard. And to critics like the legendary Roger Ebert, it was nothing more than a shameless, feature-length commercial. He absolutely tore it apart, calling it a cynical cash grab that was, and I quote, insanely overwritten and ineptly filmed. Ouch. But the director of the film, Todd Holland, he saw it differently. For him, it was an adventure story, a kids against the world tale that used video games to connect with a much bigger audience. He was trying to capture that magic of gaming for everyone, not just, as he put it, preach to the converted. So, who was right, Ebert or Holland? Well, the truth is, they both kind of were. The movie was basically a 100-minute ad. In fact, Nintendo's new products at the time, like Mario 3 and the infamous Power Glove, were treated with a level of security you'd expect for, like, state secrets. I mean, just listen to this story from the director himself. The Power Glove, it arrived on set in a locked briefcase, escorted by a security guard who watched it like a hawk all day. And the second they were done filming, he'd lock it up and take it away. That is how secret this stuff was before its big Hollywood reveal. But here's the thing. The biggest secret of Super Mario 3 wasn't in a hidden room or a movie theater. It was buried deep, deep in the game's code. A fundamental flaw that went completely unnoticed for over 30 years. A ghost in the machine that haunted not just this game, but some of the most iconic games in history. So, what exactly is this deep, dark secret? It all comes down to randomness. Things like enemy patterns or what item pops out of a block. In modern games, that's pretty easy to do. But back then, the NES just didn't have the hardware to generate truly random numbers. It was like trying to cook without a spice rack. So developers had to get creative. They had to cook up their own software solutions to create the illusion of randomness. For Mario 3, they set aside enough memory to produce over 18 quintillion unique outcomes. I mean, that number is insane. It's more stars than there are in our galaxy, a virtually infinite universe of possibilities.
But that's not what happened. Not even close. Because of one tiny little coding error, the game was actually stuck in a loop. Instead of 18 quintillion possibilities, it was just repeating the same sequence of less than 33,000 outcomes. So instead of this vast ocean of randomness, players were getting a tiny puddle over and over and over again. The technical name for the method they used is a linear feedback shift register, or LFSR. Just think of it like a software machine that's constantly shuffling bits of data around to create a sequence that looks random, even though it's totally predictable if you know the pattern. It's a clever trick, for sure, but it's not real randomness. And the mistake itself? It was so simple. A research paper that finally uncovered this bug decades later used this perfect analogy from another classic game, Donkey Kong. They said, the barrels are rolled in the wrong direction. That's it. The bits were being shifted the wrong way. One tiny wrong turn in the code with these absolutely massive consequences. And get this wasn't just a Super Mario 3 problem. This bug was a ghost in the machine for so many of our childhood favorites. Just look at this table. Donkey Kong, The Legend of Zelda, Super Mario Bros. 3. All of them set aside all this memory to create randomness, and all of them were basically crippled by the exact same tiny, decades-old mistake. So, where does that leave us? What does this all mean for a game that we all thought was basically perfect? We've got a game that has these intentional, playful secrets, was revealed through a massive commercial secret, and was built on this foundation with a secret, hidden flaw. When you break it down, we've really looked at three totally different kinds of secrets, right? You've got the intentional ones, the little Easter eggs the designers put in for us to find. Then there's the commercial secrets, this whole Hollywood marketing blitz. And finally, the accidental secrets, the bug that reveals the human error behind the perfect machine. So does this make the game worse? No way. I think these secrets don't diminish the legacy of Super Mario Bros. 3 at all. If anything, they enrich it. They make the story of this perfect game more human, more complex, and honestly, way more fascinating than we ever could have imagined. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? If a game this famous, this picked apart, could hide such a fundamental secret for 30 years, what other mysteries are still waiting to be found, buried in the code of the games we thought we knew inside and out?